Spoiler warning, just like last time, this game is still fairly new, and I will be discussing the game in its entirety today, including the ending, unlockables, and bonus content, so I would recommend playing the game yourself before watching this video. Once again, it's only $1 and fairly short, so give it a quick playthrough and then come back. Good? Alright, on to the review. Toree 3D was, relatively speaking, a big success for Zyactro. It received praise from critics for its simple and fun gameplay and charming aesthetics, and sold fairly well thanks to its release on Switch, catching more people's interest. With such a huge wave of support coming in from Toree 3D's release, a sequel was only natural, and so Marcus got straight to work on Toree 2. It was released at the end of September, just under 6 months after Toree 3D's release. That is insanely impressive. Sure, all the base code for rendering and physics and character controller and camera and stuff was there, so it was mostly just a matter of building 9 new levels and implementing a few new mechanics. But that's still an incredible feat for a one-man development team. Major props for getting the sequel out so soon after the original, especially considering just how much of an improvement Toree 2 is over the original. You probably already know this if you watched my Top 10 Games of 2021 video, but Toree 2 absolutely blew me away. It does almost everything a sequel should do, and delivers one of the most fun 3D platforming experiences in recent memory. And today, I'm going to explain exactly how it managed this. With all that said, let's get this review started. This time around, we actually have some cutscenes, including a short intro cutscene that plays whenever you boot up the game, and an ending cutscene. We see Toree taking a nap with their delicious ice cream in hand when the mysterious figure from the previous game returns to steal the tasty treat. It escapes through a portal, and Toree gives chase to take back the stolen snack. So yeah, it's literally just the exact same story from last time, but this time it's actually explained to us in a little cutscene. The story is the same, but the story presentation has been updated to better communicate the plot and incentivize gameplay. It's a small thing, and like I said last time, most people won't really need a reason to run and jump through a small handful of fun levels, but I personally appreciate the extra effort in rounding out the game better with the improved story presentation. The cutscenes are very simple, just being made of 2D sprites moving around on a static background, but it's more than enough to get the point across, and I find the simplistic style kind of charming in a way. Additionally, the mysterious ice cream thief gets a name this time around, since it's an unlockable playable character, being called Glitchy. After trekking through 8 exhilarating stages, Toree travels to its home, facing off against Glitchy in an epic boss battle. After its defeat, Glitchy surrenders, but in an act of kindness, Toree decides to share their ice cream, putting an end to the ice cream arc and making a new friend. While it may be simple, this ending is really cute and caps off the story with a lot of charm. Toree's storytelling reminds me a lot of Kirby's, with cute characters and simplistic plots underscored by creepy background details and hellish nightmare-fueled creatures. Speaking of which, how has the horror changed in the sequel? Honestly, this might be the only downgrade from Toree 3D to Toree 2. Personally, I would have preferred the horror elements to have more of a role throughout the game, but in reality, they're even less prevalent than before. They're still there. You see these giant hulking beings of incomprehensible size, and the texture work has improved significantly in making them look downright freaky. But it's really just a small handful of kinda creepy stuff, usually in the background, and one jump scare in Sparkle Park. The thing jump scaring you here isn't even scary, it's just the sudden noise that's a bit startling. From far away, it actually looks kinda silly. The code rifts are still littered around, but they're much less frequent now, and the Sea Mama returns in Palm Tree Paradise rocking some shades that make her look more chill than creepy. There's this big skull thing in Dash Dimension, but it's just sitting there doing nothing, so eh. The best use of the horror elements is definitely in Torch Tower, where this big purple snake monster rapidly approaches the stage, and you have to climb up and around the central tower to avoid being eaten alive as it consumes the entire stage. That's pretty cool. There's a lot more subtle background stuff, like weird creatures off in the corners or Morse code leaving cryptic messages, but honestly, if it weren't for the jump scare in Sparkle Park, you could probably play this game without knowing anything about it and not even realize that there are any horror elements. The Christmas-themed bonus levels don't have any at all, save for this one sign with a jump scare on it that's played more for laughs than anything else. I'm kinda disappointed with the decision to hold back the horror elements even more this time around, because the first game showed potential, and 2 almost follows up on that with good examples like the improved texture work and the giant snake in Torch Tower, but the majority of the game is horror-free, and it almost makes you wonder why it's even still here at all if it's gonna be this subtle. It's not even subtle in a creepy way, it's subtle in a, oh, there's a weird thing in the background here sort of way. Like I said in the last video, the platforming is what Toree does best, so I can't complain too much if the horror takes a backseat for the sake of improving the gameplay, but I don't really see why we can't have both at their best. Take a lesson from Kirby, add some flavor text to give these horrific creatures more backstory, or maybe give them some boss battles to really show how dangerous and terrifying they are. While the art style hasn't changed at all, the visuals have still improved quite a bit since the first game thanks to the aforementioned improved texture work and more creative theming. This time, Toree platforms around through Glitchy's secret rooftop base teeming with robots, a gorgeous water park with water slides and bouncy beach chairs, warring spaceships with lasers and explosions blasting across the screen, ruins of a temple submerged in lava, and the cherry blossom aesthetics of its home. Levels are filled with spectacle, like the giant water slide at the end of Sparkle Park, constantly speeding through conveyors and boost rings in Lunar Lasers and Dash Dimension, all the creepy creatures gathered together in its home, and the escape sequence in Torch Tower I mentioned earlier. Environments look even more charming thanks to the newly added subtle visual effects like shimmers and particles. There are more subtle details than ever before, like Toree getting a helmet in the space level, a hat in the fiery cavern levels, and the earmuffs returning for the bonus levels. Levels are once again packed with charming little background Easter eggs, and exploring around to find them is always fun. Unfortunately though, the technical issues still haven't really been addressed from the first game. Still no sound effects slider, no video options, no accessibility options, nothing. Just the exact same set of options from the first game. At least this time around, the game launched with the camera inversion options instead of having to patch them in later, and the menu bug has been fixed, so there's that. It's just a bit disappointing that after 2 games and multiple updates and patches, basic options are still missing. It's not a huge deal, but I was hoping to see this improved after the first game was sorely lacking in this department. Technically, there's actually less options from before, since this time around there's only 1 soundtrack instead of 2 to toggle between. Remember how I said that 2 soundtracks are technically better than 1? Well, I guess that's not always the case, especially if the one is this good. This time around, Cyactro got the Red Panda Music to create a full original soundtrack from the start, and he gives T. Lopes a run for his money. No joke, this is one of the best soundtracks I've ever heard in a video game. Every single track is an absolute banger, and the loops are actually fairly lengthy, which almost makes it disappointing to end a stage less than 2 minutes in because you don't get to hear the rest of the song. I've listened to the whole soundtrack outside of the game multiple times, and it's absolutely incredible. Each theme gets its own motif, which is then remixed into 2 different songs for each level of that theme, and the different remixes do a good job of building on that existing motif while being different enough to sound unique and memorable and give each level its own identity. For example, Torch Tower takes the melody from Pyro Palace and speeds it up to intensify the vibe, matching perfectly with the impending doom of this horrifying monster coming to eat you. It's brilliant. The soundtrack also makes great use of mixed up samples a la Sonic Rush, like in Sky Station, and it makes for a super fun and hectic track that perfectly matches dashing through the stage at insane speeds. Lunar Lasers combines upbeat, fast-paced synth-funk sound with atmospheric chords to highlight the feeling of speeding through giant spaceships in outer space. Palm Tree Paradise, which you're listening to right now, is my favorite song in the game and one of my favorite songs of all time. It starts off with this beautiful intro leading into this fantastic synth melody backed by a funky bass and blaring trumpets. Then you get these gorgeous synth chords before it loops back around into an amazing solo with the lead instrument, and it just melts me every time. As if that wasn't enough, Red Panda went and wrote a whole vocal theme for Sparkle Park, sung by Toree's voice actress Sayona, and it's this wonderfully cheesy pop song. I absolutely love it, and it's a highlight of what's already an incredible soundtrack. This is the kind of confidence that gives Toree 2 such a strong and memorable identity. I could go on and on like this for every single song, but I think you get the point. If there's anything I could possibly complain about, I think the theme for It's Home is a little bit on the simple side. Maybe something more like Press Garden Zone would have fit a little better, but I do like the remix for the boss battle. That one's pretty sick. Red Panda, please do the world a favor and never stop gracing the video game industry with your incredible talent. You've already created one of my all-time favorite video game soundtracks, and I'm confident your contributions won't stop there. If we ever get a Toree 3, Red Panda absolutely needs to be on the music again. His musical styling is synonymous with Toree for me now, and a new game just wouldn't be complete without his contributions. Toree 2's gameplay is all about one thing: flow. You're meant to maintain your speed almost constantly by using the stage elements and mastering the controls. Level design has been completely overhauled from the first game. No longer will you be waiting on slow-moving platforms or lining up cycles or slipping around on ice. Everything is designed in such a way that you can get from the start of the stage to the end without ever slowing down. The controls are completely unchanged from the first game, so you still only have a sprint, a double jump, and of course, the squish button returns in all its glory. Toree 3D introduced these controls, and Toree 2 expects you to be comfortable with them. From the very first stage, you'll be jumping from conveyor belts to dash rings to boost gates, all back-to-back in incredible bouts of spectacle as you blast through stages at lightning speed. The boost gates will give you this green aura that allows you to smash through enemies, giving Toree a method of attack and turning enemies into something slightly more than just obstacles. It'll run out after a few seconds at normal speed, but you can extend that by keeping your speed up while grounded, so heading for conveyor belts or water slides can help you stay protected. The water park levels introduce more verticality, with water slides pulling you downwards and bouncy beach chairs taking you back upwards. The final section of Sparkle Park makes great use of this, with a rotating vertical climb ending off in a huge slide to the end of the level. Lunar lasers and Dash Dimension go all in on speed, being a constant chain of dash gates and boost rings from start to finish, and they're absolutely exhilarating because of it. Pyro Palace is where the difficulty really starts to ramp up, with crumbling platforms, moving lava spires that force you to time your jumps, and rotating platforms altering your momentum. Torch Tower takes that to the extreme, with a soft time limit with the monster chasing you and a big vertical climb to keep things really intense. This is easily my favorite level in the game, despite being the shortest. It's just so satisfying to speed through the tricky platforming obstacles under that intense pressure. It's really genius stuff. The final level, however, kinda drops the ball. The platforming here is very basic, there's no stars to collect, and the S rank is just given to you for free no matter how fast or slow you go. I guess that's better than having to replay the entire level every time you die in the boss for the S rank, because the boss is kinda not great, but even then the boss could have just been moved to its own spot on the level select screen to prevent that from being an issue. It's a big downgrade from Its World from the first game, which did an excellent job of capping off the game in an epic finale and being a fun, well-designed level in its own right. Its Home just doesn't do this, and that's a shame. It does, however, include a boss fight, and it's not very good. You basically just run around in circles while Glitchy attacks you with these orb thingies, and then you just kick them back at it until it finally dies after like 7 hits. Halfway through the fight, the floor falls away, so you have to keep jumping across these big gaps without falling behind as you're being attacked. It's mostly just boring as you spend most of the fight just waiting around for the next attack, and when it does attack you, the hitboxes are pretty janky. Not a great boss fight, but I do appreciate the effort, as boss fights were something I was hoping to see in a Toree sequel. Aside from the last level being a bit of a letdown, every other level is a huge improvement over those in Toree 3D. The pacing has been totally overhauled, with pace-breaking set pieces requiring you to wait around being totally removed and replaced with new elements that increase the speed without ever breaking the flow. Dashing through these levels is just an exhilarating experience, and one that always puts a smile on my face. The Mega Man problem is still a thing here, where you can play the stages in any order, and so the nice difficulty curve that they do have is rendered completely moot. Again, I would prefer the game just have you play levels in a set order instead of in any order you want, but it's still not a big deal. Of course, we still have stars to collect and S ranks to get, so let's go over those. Stars once again retain the elegant placement that they had in Toree 3D, being mostly placed along the golden path, but not so much that you just grab them all while making a beeline for the exit. Star counts remain fairly low, ranging from as few as 28 to as many as 90, with only Sparkle Park going above 100 with a total of 107. Since they're typically clustered together in chunks though, it's a fairly straightforward process to grab them all. There aren't as many tricky spots to grab them as there were in Toree 3D, but I'm fine with that as they're still just as fun to collect. This time, the only placement I take issue with are these few here in Dash Dimension. You come up to this section with 4 conveyors pushing you down a hole that drops you onto a checkpoint, but there are 3 stars in here and they're surprisingly easy to miss. It's actually kind of hard to even tell if you got them all on a first playthrough because of the camera, so here's a tip. You should have 17 when you come out of here. And because this drops you into a checkpoint, there's a good chance that you'll miss some stars, land on the checkpoint, and then have to restart the entire stage just to get the few you missed. Some levels do feel a bit lacking in stars with such low counts, but that's honestly such a minor complaint I'm just splitting hairs. Once again, getting all the stars in every level unlocks Macbeth as a playable character, who is actually put to much better use this time around, but I'll get back to that shortly. The ranking system also returns, and it's much better in this game. Since the game was made with S ranks in mind from the very start, their difficulty isn't nearly as all over the place as it was in Toree 3D. Most of them require mastering the level design and taking every speed boost and shortcut possible, but they're not so difficult as to be frustrating, with one exception, and that's Hidden Headquarters. You have to get 129 or lower for the S rank on this level, but honestly, it's nearly impossible. I kept getting 130s and 131s, and it took me like 20 minutes to finally get the S rank on this level. Of course, I don't have the footage of me spending 20 minutes doing this level over and over, because the first time I did my playthrough of the game for footage, Shadowplay just decided not to work that day and didn't save my recording at all, and so I had to reset my save data and play the entire game again to get footage. And of course, this time I got the S rank for Hidden Headquarters on my first try. In fact, I got all of them on my first try, but this is like the 4th time I played this game now, so it's really not that hard for me anymore. I wouldn't have such a problem with Hidden Headquarters S rank being as brutal as it is if it was one of the later levels, but it's the first level of the game. I could imagine people might go back for the S ranks only to get walled at the first stage and give up. The rest of the S ranks still demand skill, but a couple are pretty lenient. Overall, there's still a fun and satisfying challenge that tests your mastery of the game, with only one level sticking out as being too precise. Given that this game was actually designed with S ranks in mind from the start, it's no surprise to me that they're so much better balanced than they were in Toree 3D. Once again, getting A rank on every level unlocks Tasty as a playable character, and getting S rank on every level unlocks the golden skin for Toree, which is still just as cute as ever. This time around, the extra characters are put to much better use than they were in Toree 3D, thanks to a cool new addition to the Collectibles. Tasty is just as fun for speedruns as ever, thanks to his extra speed, but now MacBat's abilities and exploration are actually useful with the CDs hidden in every level. They're pretty cleverly hidden in far-off areas, so flying around and actually exploring the level is fun and worthwhile. You can actually get the one in Sky Station with Toree with a perfectly timed jump, but the rest of them require you to use MacBat and fly around. The best part is that once you grab a CD, you keep it forever, and you can just leave the level immediately. It makes sense that the stars don't work this way, since they're not exactly hidden and there aren't too many of them, but forcing you to run to the end of the stage after grabbing the CD would be totally pointless, so this feature is very much appreciated. Getting all the CDs unlocks Glitchy as a playable character, who has the infinite jumping ability of MacBat and even higher speed than Tasty, making for a great character to actually explore around for Easter eggs with, since MacBat is really slow. It's nice to have an option for exploring around, but when it takes that long to do so, it gets a bit boring. Glitchy is a perfect answer to that issue, and it's just really fun to zoom around levels with. And that's Toree 2, but we're not quite done yet. Yes, I'm using that line again. 3 months after launch, Toree 2 got a free content update, this time being Christmas themed, and thankfully you can find these levels by selecting Bonus right from the main menu, no matter what version you're playing. No more standalone itch release. This also means you can use any of your unlockable characters in any of these levels. Hallelujah. We haven't even gotten into the actual levels, and it's already a big improvement over Jumbled Jam. Thankfully, that carries through to the actual level design too. Like Jumbled Jam, Toree 2's bonus levels experiment with the Toree formula quite a bit, but not in quite the same way. You see, there are 3, technically 4, levels in this expansion. The first 2 are open-ended collectathon levels, with the last 2 being a more traditional fast-paced linear level. Unfortunately, none of the levels are named, so I'll just be referring to them in numerical order. Level 1 features a small Christmassy town where you have to collect 5 out of the 6 ice cream cones to finish the level. Of course, I always get all 6, even though it doesn't actually do anything, I just do it because it's fun. Some are just dotted around the level in hard-to-reach areas, and others require you to complete certain tasks to collect, like finding 4 monitors with little Easter eggs on them, finding 6 toy capsule machines, and driving this flying Toree mech through all the crystals in a circle around the town. This mech is so awesome, I absolutely love it, even if you only use it for like 10 seconds. Stars are placed with the same elegance as the main levels, but of course that requires a different strategy than it did for the linear levels due to this one being more open-ended. Here, the stars are placed around the level in such a way where you don't have to explore literally every inch to find them all or anything, but rather they'll act as a guide to point you towards different points of interest throughout the stage, helping you find the other collectibles and gather ice cream cones. They're very smartly placed. Getting the S rank on this level is a very interesting challenge because you have to route out the fastest 5 ice cream cones and the fastest order to get them all in, and stringing everything together in one perfect run is really satisfying. That goes double for level 2, since it's even bigger than level 1. In this level, you have to run around this giant Christmas tree finding light bulbs and placing them in their sockets. There are 12 light bulbs in total, and they're hidden throughout every section of this massive stage. Looking around all the different areas here is really fun, because despite the level size, there's something new to do in every section of it. From running on conveyors, to jumping through boost rings, to exploring the more open areas, to the trickier platforming sections, there's always something unique to do. Unlike level 1, there are checkpoints dotted around this level as well. The first one didn't really need them since it's a fairly small level, but level 2's size definitely necessitates them, and they're thankfully spread around just consistently enough that you'll never lose too much progress at once if you die. Stars are once again placed pretty intelligently, offering some small extra challenges to grab them in some areas and incentivizing more exploration in others without forcing you to search every inch of this gigantic level. In fact, there are about 3 more stars than necessary to 100% the level, and I'm inclined to believe that this was an intentional choice. Imagine if you did need every single star and you got all the light bulbs in their sockets and found yourself at the top of the tree, ready to end the level, but you were 2 stars short. Then you'd have to go back and explore every nook and cranny of this massive level, and that would just be annoying. This isn't as straightforward a task as it is to replay a linear level for missing stars, since there isn't much room for them to hide there, and so it doesn't take as long to explore them. It makes sense to offer a few stars of leniency to prevent a scenario like that from occurring. Otherwise, the level size would just be a hindrance. In fact, I'd almost say that this level is too big, at least when it comes to routing out the S rank. However, the S rank is similarly lenient enough that you could actually take a number of different routes and still get it so long as you do everything quickly and without any mistakes. While it is the hardest level to route for an S rank, it's definitely the most satisfying one to pull off. Finally, the third level is a linear romp through a wintry city with the return of the icy slides. Yeah, unfortunately the ice physics are completely unchanged from the first game, but the ice is never placed anywhere that would be too annoying to deal with, aside from this one section in level 2, so it's not really a big deal. Anyway, level 3 sees Toree delivering a present through this bustling city to Regina and Mac on the other side. It's kind of weird at first to see all the extra level design elements that are seemingly pointless, but that's because they're basically the 4th level. When you get the S rank on this level, you're taken to level 4, where you play the same stage in reverse as Regina and Mac delivering a present to Toree. Now you have to use all those other level design elements, basically making it an entirely different stage with completely different challenges, but they just take place in the same connected area. It's pretty clever. Unfortunately though, there's one small problem. If you beat the Regina and Mac stage without getting the S rank, you can't select the stage from the menu. You have to go back in and beat level 3 with Toree again. The S rank for level 4 is kinda strict too, so it can be a bit of a pain replaying level 3 over and over just to grind out the S rank for level 4. At the very least, you don't have to get the S rank on level 3 every single time, so long as you've gotten it once, just beating the stage again will be enough to take you back to level 4. But it's still baffling that you have to do this at all. This is probably the worst designed thing in this entire game. You can restart from the pause menu during the Regina and Mac stage as many times as you want if you mess up though, so just keep doing that until you get a good run and you should be fine. I really enjoy these levels, but it's kinda disappointing that you don't get anything for 100%ing them. It's not a huge deal, but I would have liked to see Regina and Mac as a playable character or something. Whatever. Toree 2 is an absolute masterclass in simple yet effective game design. It takes everything that the first game did right and expands on it while trimming the fat and doubling down on the high-speed pacing and flow of the levels. Collectibles are just as elegantly placed as ever, and S-ranks are much better balanced due to the levels being designed with them in mind this time. The visual theming is more unique, the soundtrack is absolutely phenomenal, and the game is generally just more fun to play than Toree 3D was. Add on to that some really fun bonus levels that experiment with Toree's level design a bit and even more fantastic music, and you've got a package that, while short, still manages a fun and satisfying experience that is well worth the asking price of only $1. If you haven't already, please go buy this game. It can run on a potato PC and it's also on Switch. You got no excuse, just go buy it. That'll do it for this video. I'm surprised I managed to write even more about the sequel than I did for the original game, but I guess that just goes to show how much I love Toree 2. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed the video, be sure to like and subscribe, and if you want to support me more directly, you can donate to my Patreon. Link in the description. I'll see you guys next time, where we'll return to the Arcade Pac-Man Marathon with Super Pac-Man.